Last September, something happened in the American HVAC industry that hadn't happened in the 124 years since William Carrier, yep, that Carrier, invented modern air conditioning. For the first time ever, more heat pumps shipped in a single month than central air conditioners, and pretty much no one noticed. But it's not a one-off. Heat pumps have actually been outselling furnaces for 4 years running. And the gap is widening. The way Americans heat and cool our homes is changing, and it's faster than the industry expected, and it's happening pretty quietly. I've installed 2 mini split heat pumps in my house, so I decided to dig into this. First, the numbers, because they're kind of remarkable. In 2020, heat pumps outsold furnaces in the US for the very first time. But then they did it again in 2022, 23, 24, and 25. 4 years and counting. 2024 actually had the biggest discrepancy. According to shipment data from the Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration Institute, Americans bought 32% more air source heat pumps than gas furnaces. Now, 2025 narrowed to about 12% because some demand got pulled forward into 2024 ahead of the new refrigerant rules. But it was still a heat pump win, so 4 years in a row. Over the last 20 years, heat pump sales in the US have grown by about 70%. Meanwhile, furnace sales are staying just about the same. This gap that we're seeing between heat pumps and furnaces, this isn't just a one-off. This is a pattern that's forming here. Now, one important caveat that I have to make here is the shipment numbers don't translate one-to-one for households. Some homes need multiple mini splits to replace a single furnace. So unit for unit comparisons overstate the actual conversion just a little, but even with that adjustment, the direction is unmistakable. Americans are choosing heat pumps over furnaces and choosing them more every year, which raises the obvious question, why? What's going on? Before I explain why, we do need to have a little vocabulary check here because this whole topic is full of overlapping terms. Now, a heat pump is a machine that moves heat from one place to another. That's it. It doesn't burn fuel to make heat. It actually grabs heat that's already in the air outside, even cold air, and moves it inside. In the summer, it does the opposite. Your refrigerator, technically a heat pump. Your air conditioner is technically a heat pump. The big box outside your house with the fan in the top, heat pump. So there are 3 main flavors of residential heat pumps. There's the central ducted heat pump, which looks like a central AC unit outside, but it actually runs through all of your existing ductwork year round. Then there's the packaged unit, which is mostly commercial, and there's the mini split, the ductless one with a small outdoor condenser and individual indoor heads on the walls or sometimes the ceilings. Every mini split is a heat pump, but not every heat pump is a mini split. Mini splits are a subcategory, and it's that subcategory that's growing fastest in the US right now. Partly because mini splits don't need ductwork, which means you can retrofit a 100-year-old house, for example, in a weekend. They also let you zone your home, so each room can be set independently. Now, the lack of ductwork and the zone temperatures are huge advantages over a central forced air system, and they're a big part of the reason mini splits are taking over. Now, this next part I had no idea about until I started researching this video. The first true mini split sold in the United States wasn't from Mitsubishi or Tosot or any of those brands you'd expect. It was actually sold by the company Sears. And it was sold in 1969, almost 60 years ago. They called it the Sears Modular Central Air Conditioning System. SMCACS? I don't know. It was built by a Michigan company called Heat Controller. Now, you might know them better as Comfort Air. Kind of a huge brand now. And the design was wild for its time. So the condenser sat outside, the air handler sat inside. They even shipped it with a double wrench kit so a homeowner could install it themselves. Now this, my friends, was the OG DIY mini split. A couple of years later in 1971, the manufacturer pulled it from the Sears catalog and started selling it under their own Comfort Air brand as the Twin Pack. So why didn't the mini split take off at that point? 2 reasons. First, the US government instituted the country's first minimum energy efficiency rating. You've heard of the term EER maybe? That's the energy efficiency rating. And so this came out in the late 1980s, and the Twin Pack couldn't hit the standards. It got pulled from the market altogether. But second, and this is probably the bigger one, American homes already had ductwork. Central forced air had been the standard since the 50s. So when a builder put up a new house, the ducts were already in it. Meanwhile, in Japan and Europe, where homes were smaller and didn't have ducts in the first place, mini splits became the default. Mitsubishi launched the first wall-mounted split system room air conditioner in, you guessed it, 1969, same year as the Sears unit, just on the other side of the world. And they brought it to the US market in 1982 under the Mr. Slim brand. But it wasn't until the early 2000s when mini splits got good enough for cold weather that they really started to make sense for American buyers. which is the next part of the story. If you've ever talked to anyone about heat pumps, you've heard this one. They just don't work in cold weather. It's the most stubborn myth in HVAC, and like a lot of stubborn myths, it actually used to be true. Older heat pumps really did struggle below freezing. Now here's the thing though, the physics never said that heat pumps couldn't work in cold air. Cold air still has thermal energy in it. In fact, as I looked into it, it has a lot of thermal energy. Air doesn't run out of heat until you hit absolute zero, which in case you're wondering, that's negative 460 degrees Fahrenheit or 329 Celsius. So even at 22 below, there's still plenty of energy in the air. Problem was just getting at it efficiently. The technology that solved this is called the variable speed inverter compressor, paired with something called vapor injection. So it's a lot of $10 terms here. Both of these are now standard on what the industry calls cold climate heat pumps. Modern cold climate units rate down to negative 15 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 26 Celsius, and the best ones rate down to negative 22 Fahrenheit or negative 30 Celsius, including the new Tosot Aoraki I'm about to install. Now the proof here is the state of Maine. Maine set a goal of installing 100,000 heat pumps by 2025. They actually blew past it in 2023, 2 years earlier than expected. So the governor turned around and set a new goal of installing another 175,000 by 2027, and they're actually on pace for that. So Maine homeowners that were surveyed reported that their heat pumps held up just fine through temperatures of 21 below zero. Given everything I've said so far, you'd think the federal government must be pushing hard for heat pump adoption, right? And up until very recently, you'd be right. The Inflation Reduction Act passed in 2022 gave homeowners a tax credit worth 30% of the cost of a qualifying heat pump, up to $2,000 a year. So it knocked thousands off the upfront cost, and it was set to run through 2032. Then, in July of last year, Congress passed something called the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. So among many other things, it actually ended the heat pump tax credit. And as of January 1st, 2026, there is no federal tax credit for either an air source heat pump or a geothermal one. So industry analysts braced for this huge shutdown, and the manufacturers warned of like a sales crash that was going to happen. And so far, it just hasn't really happened. Heat pumps are still outselling gas furnaces, and the market kept going. So again, why? Well, there's three main reasons on this one. First, state and utility programs absorbed a huge part of the impact. So Massachusetts, for example, has Mass Save, which offers up to $8,500 for a whole home heat pump installation. Second, the refrigerant rules changed for the start of 2025. Every new heat pump and AC sold in the US now has to use what's called an A2L refrigerant. That is an industry-wide reset that's forcing equipment turnover regardless of whatever incentives may be out there. The third reason that mini splits keep on selling so well is because the economics didn't change. A heat pump still does heating and cooling in one box. It's still 3 to 4 times more efficient than electric resistance heat, and operating costs still favor a heat pump over oil or propane in basically any place in the country. So you take the federal credit away and the math is a little tighter, but it doesn't change the answer. Which brings me to the company sponsoring today's video and a system I've been running for many years now, Tosot. Tosot is the HVAC brand made by Gree Electric. Now, if you haven't heard of Gree, they're actually the world's largest residential air conditioner manufacturer. They're not a huge household name here in the United States, but globally, they make more residential AC units than anyone else. Tosot is their North American brand. My first Tosot was a 12,000 BTU 230 volt unit in my exterior shop, and it's been a workhouse for going on 4 years now, cooling all summer and heating all winter. I genuinely just don't think about it. It just runs, it does its thing, and my shop is totally comfortable. About a year and a half ago, I added a second one, basically the same model, in my garage when I converted it into a studio space. Same story, I just turn it on and it works, but now it has all of the Wi-Fi functionality built in, which is fantastic. But the reason I want to talk about Tosot specifically is because of a third unit I just received that's about to go in. It's called the Aoraki. Now, it is incredibly efficient. It uses the newer required refrigerant, and it's rated to operate from negative 22 degrees all the way up to 122 degrees Fahrenheit. It's the first ductless mini split in the US to launch with an integrated ERV, which stands for an Energy Recovery Ventilator. This is really cool tech. What it does is it pulls fresh air from outside and pushes the stale air out while transferring the heat between the two air streams, so you don't actually lose your conditioned air in the process. Now, most homes, they either don't have any sort of ventilation like this at all, that's probably the most common case, or they have a whole separate dedicated unit running alongside their HVAC system. So having it built directly into a mini split is definitely unusual, and it's also where I think technology is heading. Single appliances doing more of the building science work that used to take 3 or 4 pieces of equipment. So if you want to check it out, the link is in the description. There's also a coupon code, Learn to DIY, that gets you 10% off Tosot orders. And I'll put the QR code on the screen right here. A big thanks to Tosot for supporting our channel for the last 4 years. Now, one more thing before we wrap up. Remember that 1969 Sears mini split I told you about, the Comfort Air Twin Pack? Well, it had an energy efficiency rating of less than 8. Maximum line set, or the length that you could run it, was 19 feet. And it couldn't run in cold weather really at all. And it got pulled from the market when efficiency standards came in. Now, the current Tosot mini splits that I've been mentioning, they have an energy efficiency rating of 13 or higher and offer line sets up to 65 or even 100 feet. They also work in temperatures that the 1969 unit couldn't even start up in. And it's competing in a market where heat pumps have consistently outsold gas furnaces for 4 years running. So if you've got a heat pump or a mini split in your house, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear what kind you have and how long you've had it. What's been your experience so far? Now, if you're thinking about installing one, I've actually got several videos on the installation process where I'll walk you through step by step, and you can check those out right up here. My name is Nils with Learn to DIY. Thanks for watching.